Evening, dear viewers of Smart 24 TV. We are blessed to be with you in this weekend and for a special program, The Point. And it has been so special that we are now right away with Professor, retired Justice Honorable Kanyihamba, George William Kanyihamba.
George Wilson.
Oh, George Wilson, thank you so much. And you will continue and greet the visitors in any way, I mean the guests in any way to elaborate more. But we are blessed to be with you, Professor, and it's an honor counting on what you've done for this country, which is very great to recall, and for the purpose of the younger star viewers. We are with Professor George Wilson Kanyihamba. And I have here one of the book called The Incredible of recent now.
Not written by me.
Yes.
By my friends.
Yes, it is written by his friends. But something to recall as we start off with our program, he is the former Minister of Commerce, twice Minister of Justice and Attorney General in 2 different governments, Justice of the Supreme Court of Uganda and Justice of the African Court of Justice, Human and People's Rights. We also would like to acknowledge and recognize as we go through our talk show that he is one of, a rare chancellor, former chancellor, who was a chancellor for 2 universities, that is Kampala International University and Kabale University. And again, there is a lot that we are able to learn from him, being one of the shareholder of the Kigezi commercial bank. And this is the bank that we'll be referring to in part of our discussion. We are privileged as a country to have had, development of the financial sector, especially where we were seeing the coming up of some of our indigenous banks rising up, and one which we recall the Greenland Bank, of which was one of the shareholders of the then time, the managing director, we remember the late Chigundu, and it closed in 1999. Among other indigenous banks, which are of Ugandan origin, that's what I mean, Tefe Bank of 1997. And these are the banks on record, unfortunately, that we find out that they were closed. Our topic of discussion, that's why it is looking at the unresolved question of closed commercial banks and its impact on economic livelihoods of Ugandans. And again, we have one of the major questions that we will go through in our interaction, in our discussion, in our analysis with the professor, how best to revive the Kigezi Bank of Commerce and recover her clients' losses. And we don't only talk about the clients' losses, there are those even who are shareholders, but they are almost the same category. My name is Dr. Joseph Tindiebwa, a public policy analyst and management expert. It's a pleasure to be with Professor George Wilson Kanyihamba, who happens to have been my chancellor at 2 universities, Kampala International University and also Kabale University. And I also want to associate with him as my former constituency assembly delegate of Rwanda East, and by that time it was Rwanda County, who did a great work. Prof, I recall very well at nearby the playground where you were campaigning to be a state delegate, and you told the late Dr. Abel Gwendere, you say, I am a professor of law. For you, you are a doctor of books in education. Yes. So you said, if you don't send me, you people, I will not give you my law books. I recall that statement. Professor, please, you're welcome. And kindly, you can.
And I am very grateful. I want to tell people that I am very well and living extremely well. I have just finished one book, The Noble Profession of Medical People, and that book is available. You can have a copy of it. Before that, I had finished 2 others. One very, very controversial, but read by everybody, is called The Defeat of President Museveni in the War Against Corruption. He himself admits that the police of Uganda are the most corrupt institution in the government. Then I wanted to say that apart from those honors, I am unique in the world in that I have been nominated to be the Nobel Peace Prize winner of the Peace Prize, which was won. I was beaten by a Congolese doctor fighting AIDS, so I accept that. But I have been nominated twice and appointed and elected lifetime achiever. Yes. Lifetime achievement. Those ones later you can look at my honor. I don't know anybody in the world who has been nominated on occasion and elected winner of the lifetime achievement. That is my very, very important contribution. But in our own area, Rwanda, I have lived here longer than anywhere. Yes, and this is now converted into Kanyamba Foundation. Yes. And I am the Musaji wa Kabaka because this land, yes. Yes. And the people of this area, the Baganda mainly, have decided that the contribution I have made in their area, this road you have seen going up, shall be from now on forever known as Professor Kanyamba Road. Oh, that is a great honor by the people who have hosted me, loved me for the last 20 or more years. Secondly, in Rwanda, where I was an MP and a Minister of Justice and Commerce for 10 years, the Museveni opened there a hostel, a public hostel, in Rwanda hostel, and the people of Rwanda named it Kanyamba Hostel. So I tell every MP today, those who visit me, please leave that kind of legacy when you work in your constituency and become an MP. I am sorry I diverted. We can go back to Kigezi Bank of Commerce. Yes, sir.
Once again, we'd like to appreciate for being also kind to us, to inspire, and if up to now you continue to inspire us, and by such a great words we cannot expire. We continue to believe that we are ready to also move forward, and as I'm with my team here, we will also continue to work hard and ensure that we can leave some legacy for the next generation. So we go back to our topical discussion, the unresolved question of closed commercial banks and the impact on its impact on economic life.
Now forget about Ugandans. Kigezi Bank, of course, it has got other assets and other businesses. They have coffee, they have iron sheets, they have cotton. Kigezi region, we have nothing. And the late principal of Makerere University, who would be the vice chancellor if he had lived, I mean he killed him, said, Kigezi, we have nothing to export except our brains. And the other people were very unhappy with that statement. But to show you that it was true, the people of Kigezi assembled in Kabale. I was one of them. We got very wonderful papers from the late Abel Wendeire, who was, I think at the time, an educationist known in the world, and Dr. Suruma, who is now the vice chancellor of Makerere University. And they said the only thing which will save Kigezi region, is for us to establish a bank. So we teach our people in Kigezi how to bank and handle money.
Save and invest.
That is the origin of Kabale Commercial Bank, rather Kigezi Commercial Bank. Yes. We founded it. One of Kigezi people Nzei had a little man of his own. So we elected him chairman of Kigezi Bank of Commerce. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
But we had a big board, which included people like me, people like the late governor of the Bank of Uganda, yes, which included the chairman of the then Uganda Commercial Bank. He's still around. And among others, people like Jim Mwezi, the Minister of Security now, the late engineer Balaba. Those are the people who contributed the money. And then the ordinary people from Gombololas, from Sazas, contributed something like 10 million each.
Yes.
And by the time the Bank of Uganda illegally took it over and handed it over to Mr. Sudhir, who actually happened to have been my friend in those days, we had accumulated, if I guess correctly, over 5 billion shillings. If you counted the dollars, the pounds, and the mafarangas, and the shillings we had collected from our members and supporters. All the Gombolola headquarters, rather administrations, and the Southern administration in Kigezi were members of the bank. They owned shares in the interests of their communities. Gombolola chiefs, they did. The diocese of Kigezi,
Right.
and the diocese of Kabale, the Catholic one,
Yes.
they owned shares in that bank. But I made sure we put in a clause. This is very important. Kigezi Bank of Commerce shall never be handed over to non-Ugandans and people who are foreigner citizens. That was a clause very important, which we've started there.
At the time of registering.
Yes. And it was intended to boost the economy of the people of Kigezi,
Yes, sir.
not mafuta mingi or ministers, but the peasants, the mere peasants of Kabale, Kigezi. So I was a director, Suruma was a director, the late Balaba was a director, the late Justice rather Justice of the Court of Appeal, he died now. He was a member. Justice Nyinondi was a member. Doctors were members. Anybody who was this, they contributed anything. I was one of the biggest contributors to Kigezi Bank of Commerce. Then Nzei came along and convinced some big ministers in the government, mainly Amama Mbabazi and others, but they also listed my friend Ndugu Hakana Rukunda.
Yes.
But later he came here, my resident,
The former Prime Minister.
and explained that they were only using me. I even didn't know what they are doing. So we dropped him from our suite. Mama Mbabazi is cleared from our suite I'm talk about.
The Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister Rakana Rugunda, Ndugu Rakana Rugunda, is cleared.
Is cleared.
Then Amama Mbabazi
Is there.
is there.
Yes, he's a part of the conspiracy that took our bank. Then we thought it was a joke. Oh, by the way, Reverend Kayeye was representing the Diocese of Kigezi, and he was a director. So, Reverend Katali Kawe was representing the Catholic people, and he was also a director of Kigezi Bank. Then we heard that Nzei and Mbabazi had gone to Kenya, and they said, we are not getting enough money from these peasants of Kigezi. So they invited a very rich Kenyan of Indian origin and said, we shall buy you, said we were a bank. Solomon, myself, and we never knew about that. They never got a resolution from the board. So before we knew, Mbabazi and the Wakana Rukunda, they were parading them as the owners of the bank with the capacity to sell it to anybody in the world. You remember the controversial Tamangalo land? Nzei said he owns it, and he staked that against his new bank, which was illegal and unconstitutional, called National Bank of Commerce. That I hated that name, and I will die hating it.
Yes.
It was forged. It was unconstitutional. It was against the Company Laws Act of Uganda. But that his name was not Nzei. It was so named by the Kenyan three brothers who bought the bank illegally.
I have a simple question on that.
Yes.
I do respect you with no reservation, indeed, as a professor of law.
Yes.
And the process when all that was done, wasn't there a legal process that would have been instituted to prohibit them not to proceed?
No, there is.
Yes.
I told you the companies act prohibited them. Prohibited the Uganda companies native made to be controlled by foreigners. Here you have them breaking the law, saying it should be controlled by the Kenyans. That's question number one. After they had made it, the late Joseph Byamjisha, famous lawyer, they used him. But there is a resolution of the company to sell our assets to Kenyans. And he made them the wrong things. But more importantly, Sulma and others, including Engineer Baraba and Jim Mwezi, the current Minister of Security, we took them to court.
Put an injunction for
Yes,
stop
court
the sale.
to stop the Kenyans getting our money.
You succeeded?
We succeeded initially,
Yes.
but that is why they said, you Indian, you must compensate me. And he put there, the Temangalo land was $11 million. But as you know later, people said it was not his. He had no power to pledge it.
Yes.
But when the things started fading with him, he and the Babazi resold the bank without our knowledge or resolution to Abu Dhabi Consortium Arab investors. Those ones, they got $10 million. Mbabazi got $5 million. Luchikere, who was not even an original investor in the bank, who is a brother-in-law of Mbabazi, became the chairman
Of the bank.
of the bank, suggested by only two people, Mbabazi and Nzei, without our knowledge. So one day they called us, not in the building of Kigezi Bank of Commerce, but in Nzei's restaurant in Kampala. And Reverend K.A. came there. Then they said, we have sold the bank to foreigners. They mentioned the name. I laughed. I said, you can't. The debentures of the Kigezi and their shares prohibit you from doing that. So in Sanzee, you are a joker. He laughed at me. He said, Kanyamba, you don't have any money. Who are you to talk? When I discovered the later, as chairman, he had forced the bank to devalue my own shares to almost zero. Yes. But I boost his and the other bigger men 10 times.
Wasn't it also fraudulent?
Pardon?
It was. I think it was also a crime to default.
It was a crime.
Yes, sir.
They committed a number of crimes. But because of their positions and the friendship with the government, nothing was done. Let me tell you what happened.
Yes, sir.
We took the case to the High Court, accusing Zay and Mbabazi for stealing and committing fraud.
Yeah, fraud, yes.
The judge who had it, I don't know that my young man is here, but it was a judge of the High Court. He's now a judge of the East African Court and also of the Court of Appeal.
Yes.
I am afraid, I'm sorry he didn't sit on our petition, which I will mention later, not to do with the bank.
Yes,
And you can see his ruling. Go to the Court of Appeal and say, I want Chidiabwiri's ruling. He was hearing it first. He ruled that I am convinced through the evidence I have received that Mbabazi and Nzei swindled the ordinary common people of Kabale, and they want to appear before me and explain why they did so. That ruling is there in the courts.
I recall maybe the date, one of us will check the date of the ruling.
Please, you must find it. And Suruma and I, and then he said, Nzei and Mbabazi and the others who are not qualified to be directors must retire at once and be replaced by other people.
And Babas, that was out of the ruling.
That is the ruling. And he said, you must meet on Friday. When we told them that between they have about $15 million, which they stole from the bank and are banked in Dubai Bank, he said, you must capitalize the bank at that meeting on Friday. He was meeting us on Tuesday because the money is there and cease being director.
They cease even to be director.
Of Kanyamba Foundation. They had then illegally called it National Bank of Commerce.
Was that executed? Was that ruling executed that they indeed ceased to be, or they again used it?
They didn't. They ignored the judge, Chidiabwire. They converted that meeting in order to be done in annual general meeting. It's absurd.
It's absurd indeed.
And all this is in writing. We can show you all the evidence.
Yes.
So, Bajenda was attending that meeting. A lady called Bajenda from the central bank.
Yes, sir.
And do you know what they did? They appointed her a member of the directors.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Instead of investigating, she became part of the conspiracy and became a member of the board of Kanyamba. But that was now the National Bank of Commerce. So let me tell you what happened. At that meeting, they elected the two directors.
Two directors.
Three, who had no connection whatsoever with the bank. That's where Masuru Chikere, he became the chairman of the bank. Nzee's son I think it's called Humphrey, became a director, and Mbabazi's daughter became a director. That is how they responded to Justice Chilabui's orders.
Of course, to the viewers, what we are handling so far, the unresolved question of closed commercial banks. The professor is taking us through the question of management crisis, the cause of closure of this bank to have been based on the managerial crisis that was encountered in the process of building this bank, and which bank, as the professor states it was intended to support the economic livelihoods of the people of Kigezi. So, Professor, as I come back to you, having said that, I continue to explore through your elaboration to be very much more concerned and reminding the viewers that indeed the closure of this bank, number one of the cause why this question indeed became unresolved was poor management.
That's right.
And you have substantially indeed looked at that. Again, what I'm associating with your submission, or as we interact with the viewers, there is also an issue of influence peddling.
Oh, yes.
I'm very keen in what you are submitting.
That was very, very evident.
Influence peddling amidst the management of the bank, especially where...
Which is supposed to be commercial.
And then another issue which I think you've also ably looked at for the benefit of viewers is the legal framework.
Yes.
Maybe
Which
you can tell
my personally,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I am the one who drafted the memorandum and the articles of Kigezi Bank of Commerce.
What were the stated legal framework that was to govern this bank? Because the legal framework should have seized these people from day one, not
Yes.
to have joked with the people's money.
The bank's name, we said, should never be changed because it is intended to help and advance the people of Kigezi. It should always remain Kigezi Bank of Commerce. They and his fellow criminals illegally and unilaterally, without consulting us, sold the bank to Kenyans, which was prohibited by our constitution. And the Kenyans not only named it Uganda National Bank of Commerce. That was illegality, fraud, and theft combined together.
While looking into that, Prof, you know we are interacting.
Yes.
Do you think, apart from either trying to protect their personal selfish interest, I call it that in the courts, whether I remove the courts, you'll tell me, was there any substantive reason, to the best of your knowledge, that you think they were right to give us, to have closed the bank?
No, greed.
It is only greed.
It was greed and the selfish interest.
Yes.
Those were the two things which motivated them. Yes. Those are the two.
So we can move on to look at really what should have been the intervention, either of the Bank of Uganda, either of the government, other than the deliberate, what I could call connivance, or maybe covering up. What should have been done by the people of Kigezi, the clients and the shareholders, the government, which is supposed to protect the interests of the people. Partly I've seen where the government, the judiciary arm coming in, but also to look at what the shareholders should have done. These directors, I'm seeing this substantial.
I agree with you.
Yes, sir.
Now, first, the late governor of the Bank of Uganda, Tumusime Mutebile, may the Lord rest his peace, rather his soul in blissful peace. I never say eternal peace as a Christian, because then you forget resurrection. How can you resurrect when they have said, may you rest in eternal peace? That's a different matter.
Yes.
So he has done a lot.
Yes.
There is no question about it that according to the then law,
Yes.
the bank was undercapitalized. That is true.
Professor,
And he warned us.
Professor, allow us, as you stop on that, to give you a break also to a little bit have some commercial break.
Okay.
And we come back and we build on that very point, which is very substantive. Okay. Thank you. Stay tuned on Smart 24 TV. It is a good weekend where you need to find the truth with Smart 24 TV in regard on how some of the commercial banks that we could be proud to associate with, they are closed, and we are looking at a solution, how we can bring them back. Yes. And Professor is giving us a story that will take us forward to make it better for us Ugandans. We need to have our own indigenous banks. It's a pleasure. Please stay tuned as we will come back after the commercial break.